This week's episode is brought to you by Fairy Godmother Travel, the official travel agency of Communicore Weekly. Email CommunicoreWeekly at fairygodmothertravel.com to book your vacation today. Again, visit fairygodmothertravel.com and tell them Jeff and George sent you.
Communicore Weekly, wanna get geeky, bob around boats and five-legged goats. Communicore Weekly, you might get some freaky. Waiting all week, I'm sure you already know this. Greatest online show. Welcome to Season 3.
Hello, and welcome to Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show and home of the world's first pair of independently born identical twins. I'm George.
And I'm Jeff. And hello, everyone. Glad you can join us for another episode. So, we have a very quick thing we want to talk about, even though it's going to be a very one-sided conversation because we can't hear you back right away. First of all, there are some changes that are going to be coming to Communicore Weekly very soon. Nothing you'll notice on the surface, but we'll get to that when it happens. But one of the things that we...
I thought you were kicking me off as co-host.
George is no longer going to be joining us starting this episode. Sorry, George.
This episode right now.
Yeah, that was me hitting the mute button on George's microphone. But seriously, George is off the show. No. So... recently we won that most engaging fan experience award from the Dizzies. And, we've been thinking about doing this for a while. You may have noticed it in the past. We've been having some cadets come on and for segments. And we like cadets coming on for segments. So we want more cadets to come on for segments.
Yes, we do. I was waiting to see how many more times you're going to say four segments.
I was trying to see how else I could phrase it.
But yeah, we would love to have you guys email us with some of your ideas for segments, or if you're an expert in some particular aspect of Disney history or something about Walt Disney World or Disneyland, we'd love to have you come on and share your knowledge with the other cadets and either do a segment with us or help us write something. Yeah,
absolutely. There's actually a handful of people that have contacted us already that I'm working with now to kind of develop these ideas. But we really want to get you guys involved too, because you guys are just as knowledgeable about stuff as we are, sometimes more so in a lot of areas. So we would love to hear from you. So please.
Not that we get called to the carpet often.
No, we don't. Well,
no. Occasionally. But.
George, didn't I kick you off the show like 2 minutes ago? What are you still doing here?
I'm going to take my musical brother home with me then.
Oh, wait, no, you're back. George, everybody welcome George back to the show, Communicore Weekly. We missed you, man. We missed you so much.
Anyway, so you were talking about engaging people?
Yeah, engaging people. So please email us at communicoreweekly@gmail.com. Get in contact with us. We'd love to hear from you, and maybe we can get you on the show soon.
Like an upcoming Disney history segment?
I think that's just not this upcoming one like right now that you're going to hear in like 10 seconds.
Yeah, that'd be weird.
It's time for Disney history.
Much like when we talked about the World Cruise in episode 132 a couple episodes back, one of the aspects of Walt Disney World Resort in its early days is that it was the vacation kingdom of the world, essentially. People go there today to spend an entire vacation within the 4 theme parks, but back in the day, the entire resort was constructed as a multitude of different experiences, with the Magic Kingdom itself as the centerpiece. And sure, you can still do some pretty amazing things outside of the theme parks today, but very few people actually take the time to explore what the rest of the resort has to offer.
Yeah, so if you ever went through old issues of Vacationland, you probably noticed that among the articles about the Magic Kingdom, the real bulk of the issues were about everything else you could do at Walt Disney World. And there's a good reason for this, because for the first 10 years of the resort's existence, the Magic Kingdom ran very short operating hours. Unless it was a holiday season or the summer rush, the park opened at 10 a.m. and closed at 6 p.m. most evenings. And that's an 8-hour operating day for the centerpiece of Walt Disney World for most of the year. So how did Disney nerds even survive that little time in the park?
And that's barely enough time to explore Animal Kingdom on a good day. So, that's like nothing. It's like nothing. So, back on the topic, what did people do when the parks closed? Even if you weren't staying on that property at the time, many people taking day trips were likely to take advantage of some of the other offerings at the resort. Maybe hop on one of the monorails to a hotel for dinner, or watch the electrical water pageant. Sure, the park closed at 6, but the Lake Buena Vista Shopping Village was open to at least 10 p.m., which is way past most of our bedtimes anyway. And every hotel had one bar or nightclub that was open until 2 a.m., and with live entertainment to boot, so it was crazy.
Yeah, I guess with the parks closed and no Instagram.
What else are you going to do?
What else are you going to do?
You can't be clicking on hashtags to find other pictures of the parks at that time.
Not at all. So Walt Disney World was once a place designed to make you take advantage of the offerings outside of the gates of the Magic Kingdom. In a lot of ways, it forced most guests out of the theme park and into Walt Disney World's other areas. Disney was coming up with ingenious nighttime entertainment offerings, such as the Moonlight Cruises. And it was a time when the campfire sing-along on the beaches of Fort Wilderness was as important a part of your day as riding Space Mountain or Pirates of the Caribbean.
Now, all of this setup actually leads us into what we actually want to talk about, and that is Captain Cook's Hideaway. Now, it really wasn't much to it at all. It was actually a single room, it was dimly lit, it was located on the ground floor of the Polynesian Village, the Great Ceremonial House, and it was across from the South Seas Dining Room, which was a simple buffet. And these two establishments actually occupied kind of a small side hallway on the ground level where the boutique shop is currently located. And, in the early days, before the various gift shops and the eateries were modified to open up into the big atrium area, the Grand Ceremonial House mostly resembled, an open box with 2 levels and some fairly featureless bamboo walls. It wasn't nearly as interestingly themed as it is today.
Or hopefully will be.
Or will be.
Yeah, will be. So Captain Cook's was the very original cast member hangout long before the Adventurers Club or the Big Bamboo was a glimmer in anyone's eye. Disney described their creation in more romantic terms in a 1973 Vacation Land, and I quote, "For guests desirous for a dark rendezvous and the strains of a haunting guitar, Captain Cook's Hideaway provides both, as well as an outside patio romantically bathed in soft candlelight."
Very romantic. So there are actually very few photos of the inside of this place in existence, which probably indicates that it really wasn't much to look at. So Saltwater Express, they were the resident musical duo of the establishment, and they began their sets at 9 p.m. and they usually went to about 2:30 a.m. except for Monday. And they were either seated in a corner, romantically lit with this soft purple light, or they were playing out amongst the people in the little restaurant area. And the real attraction, of course, was the cozy getaway of the bustle of what was already one of America's busiest vacation destinations, and of course with a strong, potent tropical cocktail.
The namesake of the establishment, Captain James Cook, was killed by Hawaiians after trying to take the King of Hawaii hostage in 1779. While no one was killed by Polynesian Village resort staff, as far as we know, the name does lend a bit more to the Polynesian connection of the hotel itself. Of interest is the fact that Saltwater Express actually helped Disney in getting some roadway improvements, because they, meaning Disney, were too cheap to do it themselves.
So at the time, Disney was trying to get SR 535, one of the major roads leading to the resort, modernized to handle the large amount of employee traffic currently traveling on it. And this was a problem they basically created for themselves, since the road itself predated Walt Disney World by many, many years. But Disney was unwilling to contribute the funds needed for adding shoulders and more lanes and so on, but they were willing to launch a massive PR campaign about it.
Which we know they are so good at doing.
They're so good at it.
So good at it. Okay, so this campaign included a song by Captain Cook's resident musical duo, Saltwater Express, called "Can You Arrive Alive on 535?" The song was submitted to local radio stations and even plastered on billboards. Disney got their road widened and the government paid for it. Not the first time, nor the last, that Disney would get the government to pay for something. But the Saltwater Express story continues.
Just as a sidebar, as far as Disney nerds are concerned, no copy of that song actually still exists, so we don't know what it sounds like. So we can just pretend we know what it sounds like. We can have the Communicore Weekly Orchestra make a new version, and we'll just say that's it.
I have a really scary version of Staying Alive. But I'm not going to go anywhere with it, so...
Maybe not.
Maybe not.
So, back to the Saltwater Express. In March 1975, the duo moved to the Lake Buena Vista shopping village and opened a lounge attached to the village restaurant and called it the Chummery. What a terrible name for a lounge, guys. In fact, it was so terrible that Disney was actually advertising the duo's return to the Polynesian Village within a few weeks because it just failed miserably out there.
The Chummery. Okay, so Bob Christopher and Gary Stratton, who made up the duo, went under contract renegotiation in 1976, at which point they began appearing under the new name of Stratton and Christopher.
Not as catchy.
No, not as catchy at all. In-house references to the group and their popularity began to decline from that point onward, and by the late 1970s, they vanished from Captain Cook's Hideaway altogether.
Now, as you know, in later years, the Polynesian Village, it became more of a family-centered enterprise, and Captain Hook's Hideaway went with it. But the name was lent to the new food court, which still has the same name today. But the Hideaway still fascinates Disney nerds like us, and maybe not what it was itself, but what it actually represented for its time period, because there's really very little like it at Walt Disney World today, a place meant specifically for adults and this kind of cool little private nightlife area. So also, we had to get a hat tip to Fox for Passport to Dreams for her chronicling of this forgotten place and the musical duo, because without her, all this stuff would have been lost to time a very long time ago.
Yeah, we wouldn't know half as much. So if you have any thoughts or comments about the Saltwater Express or the original location of Captain Cook's Hideaway, give us a call on the Communicore Weekly GOAT line at 424-785-GOAT. That's 424-785-4628.
He's a nerd, he's a geek, but we all like to hear him speak. So listen up to the words from his speech. It's George's Book of the Week.
This week's book is Disney Declassified, Tales of Disney, Scandals, Sex, Accidents, and Deaths by Aaron Goldberg. Okay, so when you scan the literature of Disney-related books, which I do a lot, you run into a lot of general history, travel books about planning your vacation, and books like featuring social discourse, like, how did Disney, the films, influence America or society or culture. One area that's not been covered much looks at the legal and illegal things that have taken place at Disney parks within the Disney company. So Disney Declassified by Aaron Goldberg, he tries his best to tackle some of the darker and more unethical moments in Disney history, not necessarily by Disney, but, centered around the company in some way. As a caveat, Disney Declassified looks at some pretty negative things, like people trying to rip off the company and lawsuits that are going from the company and to the company, basically. And it can sort of change how you view Disney a little bit. This is definitely a book in which you'll need to remove your rose-colored mouse ears.
But I'm always wearing mouse ears.
Did you grow up wearing mouse ears?
I did. So just the topic alone right off the bat, it kind of lends itself to compare with Leonard Kinsey's The Dark Side of Disney. Mm-hmm. And both books do look at the darker side of the Magic Kingdom. However, while Kinsey's book is really more of an alternative travel guide or a guidebook, Disney Declassified is more like stating the facts of things that aren't going to be everyone's cup of tea, kind of like George said. The book is divided into these sections. They're looking at stuff like accessibility lawsuits, mature encounters, money-stealing schemes, and, just general debauchery that happens in the Disney parks.
Yeah, but, if we would have written the book, there would have been a whole chapter on shenanigans.
I love shenanigans.
Yeah,
it's a restaurant with the crazy stuff on the walls.
The crazy stuff on the wall, anyway. So, Disney Declassified, like you said, it's not to be confused with Leonard Kinsey's awesome Dark Side of Disney. Not that Disney Declassified isn't good, but it reminded me more of some of the sections of David Koenig's books, like Reality Land and Mouse Tales, in which he'll take a section in the middle of the book and he'll talk about injuries and deaths that have occurred at Disney parks. Koenig is a journalist, so he does very much a black and white reporting, never really passing judgment. And while it's not a big section in any of David Koenig's works, it's kind of weird still to read so much negative about the parks and the companies. And I want to make sure that everyone that's listening understands that Aaron doesn't have an agenda with the company at all. He loves Disney as much as we do, but he simply wants to point out a lot of the devious, the underhanded, and potentially dangerous things that have happened. By and large, it's really a look at how some very unsettling things have happened and how, the companies responded.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically just documenting the facts and the stories behind these cases. Having said that, it still was a bit jarring to read one case after the other, but it's pretty much what you sign up for when you pick up the book. There really weren't any that really shocked me all that much, to be honest, but a few did make me kind of like go, well, that's insane. But since many of these were legal matters, the complete resolution isn't entirely known to us just because they're not out there and open for the public.
Yeah. It's when I read the book, there was to me, the worst section, and not any fault of Aaron's at all. He's a good writer. He handles the material very well. It's just the fact that the section was focused on, how people did really unethical, bad things at the park. One woman had a baby and left the baby in the toilet, and there have been cases of kidnapping, and not like actually always little kids, but sometimes cast members or adult guests. The section that was on people that were trying to bilk Disney out of money really disturbed me, simply because other people were often hurt in some of these escapades that they went on. Still, neither one of us is really trying to turn you away from the book at all, and I'm glad that Aaron's documented a lot of these cases, because it's a side of Disney that we rarely see.
Yeah, exactly. And if there's one complaint I have about the book, it's that, like I just mentioned before, a lot of these are legal matters, so we don't get the full story. Some of the stories seem a little partially completed before he moves on to the next one, but again, that's just because he can't get the full story because they're in some kind of legal binding contract.
They may have a settlement they can't talk about.
Yeah, they can't talk about it.
Yeah.
Some of the stories have a beginning in the middle of them, and then it's on to the next story for that reason. Despite the book being divided into sections about the different types of cases, some of it was a bit disjointed, jumping from one story to the next, but I think that just has to do with the fact we just don't know the endings of some of them. So again, not really at the fault of Aaron. It was just a little jarring to me.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that Aaron tackled a book like this. It's just sort of so we have a permanent record a lot of these atrocities and other things that have happened, just so we've got a book that we can refer to. He does include a bibliography of his sources, but they're just listed alphabetically, and I was just flipping through my copy of the book to check on it as well. They're divided by chapter, so you can see the articles he referenced by chapter, but they're not really tied to any specific articles or parts of the book, so it kind of makes it hard to research if you want to find out a little bit more about a specific, legal battle or something, an injury that happened at one of the parks. This is a book, of course, that I would purchase for my collection, not just because I'm a completist, but it's interesting to me. I thought it was kind of heavy to read, so many negative things all at once about the company, so it might be something that you just enjoy dipping in and out occasionally, reading a couple pages or a chapter here, putting it away and coming back, because I think you'll like it. You'll look at the parks differently after you read this book.
I mean, it's definitely interesting to have it all compiled in one place, and it may not be for everyone, but it is an interesting record of the bad things that have happened at Disney and to the guests, and because of the guests over the years, so it's definitely interesting to read it all at once. Yeah,
so if you're interested in it, sort of like as it says in the subtitle, Tales of Disney Scandals, Sex, Accidents, and Deaths, then definitely pick up this book. Aaron did a good job with it. It's well written. I would like to have seen better documentation of his sources, but they're all listed. But still, yeah, if you think you might enjoy it, pick it up. This week's book is Disney Declassified by Aaron Goldberg.
What we liked, what we didn't like, Yays and the Booze, 60-second review.
Okay, so this week's 60-second review is on the recent Blu-ray release of Captain America: Winter Soldier. And I know we both talked about this many episodes ago when we saw it in the theater, but like pretty much every Marvel movie that's been released on Blu-ray, you need to go out and buy this.
Yeah, what more do we need to say? This movie is fantastic. And I know we say this in almost every single one of these reviews, but here's the entire review, guys. Scarlett Johansson. Okay. Review over. Everybody go purchase the disc.
Yes, we watched it simply for Scarlett Johansson, and that was about it. And I thought about it after watching it on Blu-ray. People refer to it as a buddy film. I think you actually called it that during our review.
Yeah, I thought it was a buddy film.
Yeah, the Black Widow and Captain America, and I didn't realize how much of a Black Widow film it actually was.
I mean, I still hope we get a different like a standalone Black Widow film.
Sure.
But
Sure.
This is probably the most mature out of all the Marvel films so far, because it was definitely a political thriller. With Marvel action thrown in, but again, we already talked about the film. We really, really liked it. Let's talk about the extras really quickly.
Yeah. So, first off, really, really, really disappointed. That's 3 reallys, which wasn't enough. There wasn't a Marvel one shot on this disc.
That is the huge downside of this disc.
Unless we missed it somewhere.
Unless it's hidden.
Egg. But I played around with the remote, yelled at it, screamed at the TV. Made my 10-year-old cry. We didn't see the one shot anyway, which should have been right there on the top. Need something else. But, that being said, I thought it had a few really interesting, the on the front line and inside look at Captain America's battlegrounds. Even though it was only 10 minutes, was really cool because it showed you how they constructed a lot of the major fight scenes.
I didn't realize a lot of the major fight scenes were all the big thing nowadays is everything is digital. You can do whatever you want in digital, but how much work and effort they actually put into practically doing these fight scenes, these big action pieces, and how they shot it too. They shot it all basically the entire movie was shot handheld, which kind of blew my mind from a filmmaker perspective. It was really, really cool to see the dedication and the amount of work they put into it, and it shows. I mean, the sequences are amazing when you see them on screen, but it's cool to get this behind the scenes peek at it. And they talk about that stuff a little bit more on the director commentary as well, which I did listen to, and I love that stuff. I mean, they got there's some cool little tidbits out there. What they kind of want, how his story they want it to go next. I mean, it was really, really cool to hear that stuff.
Yeah, I didn't have enough time to listen to that. So there was another one that was a short with Anthony Mackie, who plays the Falcon. And it was good. It was just basically how he was just yelling, cut the check every once in a while. But you got to see a good look at him. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with, I think, in the Marvel Universe. He's a great character, more than a sidekick. He could become a full member of the Avengers team.
Absolutely.
I think so. And they had some deleted and extended scenes.
Yeah, they didn't really add anything more to the film overall. The one I really wanted to see was Black Widow reveals her past.
Yeah, that was good, but it wasn't...
There wasn't anything to it, so I'm sure those are stories where they'll explore in the future.
Yeah, I hope so.
Of course, the gag reel is always hilarious.
That's true, yeah. There were some good scenes in the gag reel, a lot of mess-ups during a lot of the more tense moments.
But it was interesting, the Notebook one, where not Nicholas Sparks' Notebook, but Captain America's Notebook, how what he wrote in it, it changed it for every territory in the world, and it was just cool how they determined what was going into his notebook for the things that he had to check out, to catch up to the 21st century. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
That was neat. And I think for me, one of the coolest facts, which they never really stated, but as you watch the gag reels and some of the extended scenes, when they showed the clipboard, the working title of the film was Captain America Freezer Burn.
Which is hilarious to me.
That is so funny.
Before they decided the final title that they were calling it Freezer Bird in production. Yeah. That's great.
Which was worth it as well. So I guess, besides missing the Marvel one-shot and not having a lot of bonus features, it's an awesome film. It looks good. It sounds good.
It's a Marvel movie, guys. I mean, come on. Thumbs up. I would say this is a definite buy.
Oh, definitely. You need to get this one.
Sometimes you might see it, sometimes you don't. Hey, look, what's that? It's a 5-legged goat.
When you're riding the Disneyland Railroad, just before you get to Toontown Station, you'll pass a bit of Frontierland, specifically the backside of Big Thunder Ranch, which is like the 9th or 10th wonder of the world at this point. So when you're passing it, there's actually a doghouse there with the name Indiana painted in white above it. And of course, this is a reference to the line in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where Henry Jones, as played by Sean Connery, remarks that they called the dog Indiana, thus explaining where the name Indiana Jones really came from. But why is this little tidbit in Frontierland? Well, before the Indiana Jones adventure was made, there was supposed to be a young Indiana Jones stunt show based on the television series, and it was going to be located where Big Thunder Ranch is right now. Now, the Doghouse pays tribute not only to the classic line from the last good indie film, but also the stunt show that never was.
So this is just another example of how the cadets can help us.
Exactly.
'Cause we'd like to thank or give a hat tip to Cadet Nikki for reminding us about this special five-legged goat at Disneyland.
Yeah, I always remembered seeing it there, and I knew we were going to feature it at some point. But I just recently learned that tidbit about the stunt show that was going to be there.
Yeah, the stunt show.
So it was nice, dual little goat there.
Yeah, and since we weren't able to use the robes from the Grand Californian as a five-legged goat,
No,
because they haven't memorialized those robes yet.
not yet, but they will one day.
But they will. But once again, thank you, Nikki, so much, because she gives us a nickel each time we say her name on the show.
Nikki.
Which is another way of engaging with us.
Giving us
nickels.
Money.
No, just nickels.
Oh,
we don't want to be too greedy.
But I want
Just some
Heimbucks.
$5. So you're basically telling people to create a fake currency?
No, I already created it. It's fine.
Oh, okay. We'll just have to figure out what the exchange rate is.
Yes.
Okay.
It's not much, guys. Sorry.
And on that note, I think we shall end the show. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening to another episode of Communicore Weekly.
Please be sure to leave us a comment and give us a rating on the good old iTunes.
Yeah, give us 9 Heimbucks.
9 Heimbucks.
We're going to take over iTunes and change the rating system to Heimbucks.
Flush with Heimbucks.
And email us at Communicore at CommunicoreWeekly@gmail.com with your stories of engagement or... Well, that didn't work out well.
No, it didn't.
No.
Feel free to completely ignore everything I say like George does by liking us on Facebook at facebook.com/Communicore Weekly.
Yes. And you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Imaginerding, and he's at Jeff Heimbuck.
And of course, give us a call on the Communicore Weekly Goat line at 424-785-4628.
And you can pick up your copy of Communicore Weekly, the musical. Visit Amazon, CD Baby, iTunes, listen for free on Spotify. Trust us, you will love it.
Heck yes. And of course, buy your Communicore Weekly swag at the Communicore Weekly web store. Go to go to that, go there.
You guys know exactly where
CommunicoreWeekly.com. Click on the store
Yes.
link. Or you can search for us on tpublic.com by just searching for Communicore Weekly.
Very nice, very nice. So for Jeff Heimbuck, I'm George Taylor.
And for George Taylor, I'm Jeff Heimbuck. He's still on the show, guys. Don't worry. We made it through the episode. He's still on it. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next time on Communicore Weekly, the greatest online show.